Cape Cod is an inspiration for innovation. eSTEAMERS will introduce you to the often overlooked entrepreneurs who are building Cape Cod's future with STEAM. Join us on the journey as we discover the makers, the innovators, educators, and artists who are creating the new economy on the sandbar.
Welcome to eSTEAMERS. I'm your host, Paula Hersey, and today we're talking about co-working and CapeSpace. One of the hardest things as a new business owner or even a solo entrepreneur is finding space for your business to work outside of your home. Or maybe you're one of those traveling folks that just needs an office to stop by. Well, there's a brand new space just made for you. With me today, Robbin Orbison, who's the owner of CapeSpace. Welcome to the show.
Thank you, Paula. I'm delighted to be here.
That's great. So you're a wash ashore here on Cape Cod.
I am.
You know what that means because you've been here a little while now.
I am, although I lived through the winter of 14-15, and I think that gets me some, that gets me a little credit for.
There you go. Why don't you tell me a little bit about yourself and how you landed on Cape Cod?
Yeah, sure. So I basically have spent my career in the real estate development industry, in the accounting and finance end of the industry. And most recently, I had worked my way into a CFO position at a large commercial real estate development company in New York. And in, I believe it was 2012, that company decided to launch a chain of shared workspace operations that they put in their buildings. So if you had a large, commercial office tower, we would set aside 30 or 40,000 square feet and furnish it, and and lease it furnished in small pieces with services. It's known as Silver Suites, and it's up and running today. And so I got a little bit of experience in this industry. But moved here to the Cape. Basically, my husband and I moved because we were just ready for a kind of a lifestyle change. And I thought when I moved here that I wanted to do some kind of small-scale real estate development on my own, because I'd been working for these guys my whole life, and I thought I can do that. And I was gonna, I don't know, find a little strip mall, fix it up, re-tenant it, and something like that. But I did find that the permitting process for doing outdoor construction here was a little bit longer than I felt like putting into it. But simultaneously, my husband's a lawyer, and he has hung a shingle, so he's got a practice here. But in the beginning, for the first few months, we worked out of the house, and after a few months of that, I said, "Honey, we have to get out of the house," and I said, "Let's just go to a Regus." Regus is the largest operator of shared workspace in the world, and I said, let's just go to a Regus, and there weren't any. So I started asking around and talking to town officials and chambers of commerce, and perceived that there was that the Cape was ready for this kind of a product. So I spent about a year and a half scouting out locations, and finally settled on one last fall, and we've spent the winter doing construction, and we opened a month ago. So here I am.
So having said all that, which is just a kind of a similar story of how people come to the Cape as they're ready
Everyone
for
has a story.
Everybody has a little lifestyle thing that they kind of want to, slow down a little bit. But what a lot of folks don't understand is that there's still a lot of business to be done and to do here on Cape Cod. But a lot of it is very small business, and a lot of it is solo entrepreneurs.
Yes.
Now, having been one of those in another lifetime for 18 years, working from home is onerous unto itself. When you're in your home, you may not shower for days. But receiving clients at your location for a meeting is really just not cool. I have dogs, and it was just crazy. The whole piece of video conferencing now, so there's a lot of stuff that goes into a small office. CapeSpace co-working kind of define what that is. So if I want to come out of my cave, what can I expect?
Yeah, sure. Okay. So there are a lot of terms that get thrown around out there. CapeSpace, I think you actually just invented. But co-working, you'll hear business center, you'll hear executive suites, alternative workspace, flex space. Someone, I believe in Minnesota, has coined the term pro-working, which has some kind of a definition. And you'll also hear about business incubators and accelerators. These are all different types of shared workspace. But today in the industry, there are really kind of two factions. So let's talk first about business centers. So business centers have been around for about 50 years. The first business center was started in California. It was actually started by lawyers. It was a man named Paul Fagan in 1970 who had a law practice, and he had some extra rooms, and he started renting them to other sole proprietor lawyers. And then he started also including in that rental the use of his law library and his copy machines and his conference rooms, et cetera. And that became the forerunner of what became known as business centers, of which Regus, R-E-G-U-S, is the largest operator in the world. They've been around since the 80s. They started in England. They have over 2,000 locations around the world. They're in something like 150 countries. And what the business centers were is exactly what Paul Fagan started, except they stopped focusing specifically on lawyers. So you had basically private offices, small furnished private offices with shared services, receptionist, conference space, equipment, et cetera. In 2005, a gentleman by the name of Brad Newberg started the first thing to actually be labeled co-working. And he was a software developer, and he's working for a company, and he didn't like that, and he wanted to be on his own, but he also didn't want to be isolated. He wanted all the freedom of being self-employed, but the community of still being part of an organization. And so he started this thing and coined the phrase co-working. And they're doing essentially, the co-working people are doing essentially the same thing as the business center people, but the style is different. So instead of private offices, co-working is usually open plan seating. So picture airport business lounge, picture those people you see sitting in Starbucks with their laptops.
There you go.
And the other thing that differentiates co-working from a business center is that co-working is very focused on fostering collaboration among the members. It's very, they're very into what they call community building. And so we're typical users of a business center. They may like being around other professionals and getting out of the house, but they don't necessarily want to collaborate with the other people. They want to do their own work. Whereas the co-working people are very much about the synergies and I think the buzzword today is the casual collision, which is thought to increase product creativity and innovation. So you've got business centers, you've got co-working, but in reality today is that most of the business centers have introduced some kind of open plan seating and social component to their businesses, and most of the co-working centers now are putting in some private offices. So the whole thing is leading towards a hybrid, which it remains to be seen what the name of the hybrid is going to be. I will say that in the world, though, outside of the industry people who kind of have defined their terms within, co-working seems to be the phrase that is taking off. So when people just people outside the industry talk about co-working, they're very often referring to a Regus or something that we would have called a business center a long time ago. Now, there's actually a little bit of contention in the industry about this and who's called what, but that's where it is. The fact is, it's all shared workspace, and there are styles within the business centers and the co-working or the hybrids. There are even differentiating themselves even at a more granular level. So there are centers that specialize, for example, in a particular type of an industry, much as Paul Fagan did with lawyers. One recently opened in California that specializes in architects, and they have plotters and CAD stations and all the kinds of equipment that architects need to do their jobs. Yeah, there are ones that focus on tech people and writers, and I think there's one that focuses on, it's got a great name, I'm trying to remember it. It focuses on women entrepreneurs.
Oh.
It has the name Hera in it, you know, the queen of the Greek goddess. I can't remember the exact name of the center.
Oh my goodness.
But yeah, so the centers are differentiating themselves in lots of ways, including the styles, decors, you know, and their operating procedure. The other interesting thing is that it's not just this industry that is moving towards these kinds of open plan seating. Large corporations are now doing this in...
They're breaking down those cubicle walls.
Exactly, they're breaking down the cubicle walls and even the office walls, and just creating large open plan seating arrangements, and they're having varying degrees of success in that transition, because it's difficult for people who are used to having their walls, you know, to suddenly be, you know, out on the floor. There are some, you know, obviously a number of environmental things that you have to consider in order to do this right. You have to think about acoustics, you have to think about, you know, HVAC, which works you can't take a building that was traditionally chopped up into small offices and think that the HVAC is going to work the same once you rip out all the walls. So everybody's working through that, but the industry is maturing very quickly. There are quite a few companies out there now that are specializing in helping you with, you know, these kinds of, you know, environmental issues, in addition to, you know, the technology that we need to operate.
So it's funny because, again, I come back to my own little world of being a web developer for so many years, and you talk about breaking down those walls. When I first started in the industry, it was the tech bubble, and there were no walls. And then there became walls, and now they're breaking them down again. But for the Cape, let's really focus here on the Cape. There's a Starbucks, I think, in Mashpee and one in Hyannis. There might be another one down in Orleans somewhere. So you have 3 Starbucks that people can lay out their laptop and kind of work. But there's really no place for anyone to do this except for the new facility that you just opened. And having been part of your grand opening, I was there that evening, it blew me away. It's just absolutely gorgeous, Robbin. You're the hybrid. Because you had everything there. You had small little cubicles, you had a big open floor plan, you had something that looked like Starbucks. Tell us about the amenities and how that thought process of putting together a hybrid of all this different space in this one space.
Yeah, so you know, as I said, I had this experience with Silver Suites, but Silver Suites was a very corporate style, you know, straight business center, you know, in vertical, you know, commercial office space. So, so even though I knew something about shared workspace, this was very, very different for me, and I sort of learned from the market when I first started to work on this project. And really, I just spent a lot of time talking to people and trying to understand what I thought people here would find useful. So, you know, the first kind of watchword of the industry really is flexibility, because this is the first thing that you want, right? First of all, you know, people don't want to have to sign leases, okay? Signing a lease is a turnoff. Buying furniture, that's a commitment, right? You know, laying out capital for paint and carpet or more. Those are all things that are a turnoff. So this kind of alternative is all about flexibility. You don't have to sign a lease. You don't have to buy furniture. You don't have to call Comcast. You don't have to do any of that. You show up with your laptop and your cell phone, and everything else that you need is there for you. So think about the typical amenities that you have in a corporate headquarters, right? Okay, there's a cafe of some sort with, you know, coffee and water and a microwave and a refrigerator, and you know, and there are printers and copy machines and conference rooms. So, you know, we have all of that, of what you would call standard business amenities.
Yeah.
But in terms of the product, that was kind of very much designed based on what I thought would resonate with Cape people. So for example, one of the big names in the industry is called WeWork. It's W-E, capital W-O-R-K, one word. And they have been really taking the co-work world by storm. They started in 2010, and they are currently valued at over $15 billion. Wow. That is how fast this industry is growing. But if you go into a WeWork, a lot of them do now have private offices. They actually have one private office that is 40 square feet. So think about, that's about the size of where you and I are sitting.
Right.
In co-working, space utilization is obviously important because the more people you can fit in, the more money you can make. But I didn't see the Cape as ready for a 40 square foot office. Right. So we did the offices in a standard 100 square foot. We have a couple that are a little smaller, a few that are a little bigger. I also wasn't sure if the open plan seating was really going to take off. But there's an advantage to the open plan seating for a member, which is that it's a lot less expensive. I mean, you can get into, you can buy a part-time membership in the business lounge for very little money, as opposed to renting a private office.
Right.
But I also thought there should be an in-between. So I actually have this little sort of semi-private workstation product that I actually haven't seen in other shared workspace operations, and actually I've been pleasantly surprised so far. People are liking them, and I've rented a few, and so the other thing is that a lot of the furniture that I use is rented, so it's easy, relatively easy for me to say, you know what, that's not working. People don't like that. I'm going to pull that out and try something different.
Well, that's innovative. Why buy stuff if you're not sure if it's going to work?
Exactly.
Or not? One of the things I was really, really impressed with was the actual amenities for video conferencing and for the internet. You're one of those businesses that took advantage of CapeNet and OpenCape.
Yes.
There is no Comcast phone outage at your place, is
That's
there?
Correct. That's correct.
Because that was the big thing this past yesterday and today, is that everybody's phones have been down and their internet connections have been crazy.
Yes.
So tell just a little bit about the technology that's gone into this. You talk about printers, but they're not just any printer. It's not an HP DeskJet sitting next to you.
It's not an HP DeskJet. So first I would love to just talk for a minute about OpenCape and CapeNet, which are, I know there's a lot of confusion about the difference between OpenCape and CapeNet, but and I know you know the difference, but just for your viewers. So OpenCape is a nonprofit corporation that actually owns a fiber optic network, a physical fiber optic line here on the Cape, which many people don't even know exists. And I would describe the nature of, and so people say, why can't I have that? Right. I would liken it to if you had Route 6, but you didn't have any off-ramps. And that is basically the situation that OpenCape is in right now. Right. I was very lucky that the space that I chose was close to the fiber.
It was close to one of those off-ramps.
Close enough that we were able to build a connection. CapeNet is the operator that delivers the service. So so I have Wi-Fi provided by OpenCape provided by CapeNet, which provides me access to the OpenCape fiber. So we have super fast, super reliable Wi-Fi.
So let me put that in context for some of our viewers. Skype.
Yeah.
Okay, video conferencing.
Yeah.
It's not off a slow connection.
Correct.
It's not off a really, this is your own bandwidth. You're not sharing this with anybody. So your video is crystal clear.
That's correct.
The audio is there's no stutters in the audio.
Correct.
That's incredibly, I think, one of the bigger selling points of co-working at CapeSpace.
Yes.
Especially if you're doing flex work from another company.
It's huge. The main reason people are coming in there is to do work, and if you're working, you got to have connection. Right. So it's huge for us. you know, we have, I don't know I don't know how to liken the speeds, but I do think I read in in a CapeNet literature of some sort that the speeds are, they're at least 50 times faster than anything else that you can get on the Cape.
That's fantastic. So I got two more questions. We're running a little out of time here, but the first question is who uses your space? Now, we talk about the solo entrepreneur, but there's a myriad of other people that can utilize this space, right?
Yes, I think I've actually identified 11 different potential audiences for this product. But so certainly this small businesses, right? Anybody who's working out of their house, and you know, there's I'm sure you know the big global real estate brokerage firm, CBRE.
Yep.
They put out a survey recently, a global co-working survey. 61% of the people who are working in co-working centers said that the main reason they did it was to get out of the house. So there's people, we talk a lot about the space and the amenities and the Wi-Fi, but none of that is the real reason that people come. The main reason people come to these things is because they feel isolated. They're coming for this social component. So people working out of their house, and you know, like Michael and I did, my husband was just like, we got to get out of this house. So certainly that's an audience. People working in conventional commercial real estate offices might want to look at this because the industry average is that this is actually 30 to 40% cheaper than working in conventional space. Because if you're in conventional space, I mean, think about it, you're paying utilities, you're paying Comcast, which probably doesn't even work. It did yesterday. You may be paying common area maintenance charges, you have to buy your own furniture, you have to, if you want someone to greet your guests and answer your phones, you have to hire someone. If your light bulb goes out, you have to drive to the hardware store and get a new one. And if you come to CapeSpace, all of that's taken care of for you. So you're freed from the burden of facilities management, in addition to it ultimately likely being a lot less expensive when you factor in all those costs. Another group, as you mentioned, are the people, I call them the road warriors, the people who are driving around all day. You know, you just drive from appointment to appointment, and you know, you need some place to be in between those appointments. So instead of sitting in your car and trying to make phone calls and, you know, do your work, you have a place to touch down. If you have, I'm getting a lot of interest from businesses that are based off the Cape who do business here.
That's what I was going to say, that do business here.
They do business here, and they have reps down here on a regular basis. What we hear is we don't have any place professional to meet with clients. They're meeting in coffee shops or whatever. The business address is valuable to them because they're not coming up on Google searches for businesses on Cape Cod if they don't have a Cape Cod address. And they also need a place for their reps to be when they're, you know, not out you know, driving around or at a client. So there's a lot of different types of users. One of the ones that's the most interesting, which is a trend in the industry, is large companies actually using shared workspace for swing space. So if you had, you know, maybe you were starting up a new division, but you didn't really know if it was going to take off, and you didn't want to sign a lease and commit to more real estate and you know, another build out for this team, you could maybe take that team and put them into a CapeSpace or something like that temporarily, because it allows a large company to scale up and down very easily. It also gives them overflow space for, you know, meetings and for, you know, out of town, you know, they may have offices in other locations and they have people in town and they don't have enough places for them to sit. So so that is also a market for us.
That's fantastic. So how do people find out more? How can they co-work?
Okay, well, co-working is very easy. So there are a number of ways. First of all, you can always go to CapeSpace.com. And we have lots of information there on the website. We are open 8 a.m. to 6 p.m. 5 days a week. We're closing at 3 on Fridays for the summer, but
of course you are.
but after Labor Day, we'll be open, you know, until 6 on Fridays as well. And anyone is welcome to come in. You do not need an appointment. You can just walk in, or you can call us on the phone at, do you want me to say the number?
Sure.
It's 508-202-1680. I'm also trying to get out and do as much of this as possible, so I'm at various speaking engagements, and anybody's welcome to stop me after one of those, and I'm happy to talk about co-working all day long.
That's fantastic. I think it's a really, really good thing for Cape Cod. Again, having been in the space for, as a solo entrepreneur and as a small business, I think the point of creativity, of just being with people, they might not be in your industry, but somebody to bounce an idea off of, or somebody to just say hello and take that 5 minutes around the water cooler to just talk about the Red Sox. I mean, that's something that I think is really important to good work.
Yes.
So good work, Robbin.
Well, thank you, Paula. It's been a pleasure.
Thanks. Welcome. I'm Paula Hersey, and this is eSTEAMERS.